some of the ground rules. Bruce Jett over here in the blue shirt will be the timekeeper. We're gonna have everybody have a maximum of 2 minutes to answer the questions. When there's 30 seconds left, Bruce will raise his hand, and then when the time's up, he's got a bell on his phone that will sound. This is not a debate, so please direct your answers to either me or the audience, and not to each other, and just please be respectful of each other. You'll be asked a total of 4 questions, pre-selected by myself, and then after those, you'll be given time for an extra 2 minutes to just speak freely on whatever issue you want to talk about that may not have been asked or addressed, or elaborate on any question that was asked. So, is there any questions? All right, so I guess we'll get started. I'm gonna start from Mr. Crisp, and we'll move towards me, and you can introduce yourself, and I'll give you just pass the mic.
Alrighty. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone coming here to give us the opportunity to introduce ourselves. My name is Steve Crisp. I have lived in Angier for 26 years. I consider myself almost a lifelong native of Angier because I've lived here longer than anywhere else I've ever lived in my life, probably twice as much longer as anywhere else. It's been home. My wife of Terry back here, she is a native of Harnett County. She's made this more of home than anything else, and I look forward to serving you all to the best of my abilities, and with God's grace, even better.
My name is Ethan Alexander Davey. You can probably tell from my accent that I'm not from around here, but I teach at Campbell University. I have a PhD in political science, and I teach political science at Campbell. I've loved living in this town. I own a house here on the west side of Angier off Route 210, and I look forward to the opportunity to help this town with all of the major challenges that it faces.
So I'm Brian Hawley. It's nice to meet everyone tonight. Thank you all for being here. First of all, I'd like to say Ethan here is a very modest individual. He was my professor at Campbell University, teaches constitutional law 1 and 2 and some political thought things. So the things he's teaching our students in college right now is very valuable. And so I've been here, my wife and I, we moved here about 21 years ago. We have a great set of twins, Hunter and Joshua. Very proud of those kids. Angier's been our home, always will be our home for the most part. I believe we'll always have some love for this community, even if we were to move and go somewhere else to live. So my goals in this community is to continue to advocate for what I've always advocated for, to make it a better place for all of our families, not just select few. Thank y'all.
Good evening. My name is Tom Werner. I, like Mr. Davey, have lived more in Angier than I have anywhere else in my life. I've been here 24 years. I served on this board 20 years ago, and I feel like that experience it opened up an opportunity. I feel like I have something I can bring to the town. Currently live here on the other side of town, and I have houses growing all up around me, so I have serious concerns, which is the reason I'm here tonight. But I'm currently a school teacher in Johnson County, taught in Harnett County for 4 years, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of my ideas tonight with you folks.
Oh. All right, so the first question of the night, we'll start with Mr. Crisp. How have you been already volunteering or serving in the town?
In the past, I served on with the Chamber of Commerce. I volunteered for a couple years with the Crepe Myrtle Festival, and then I served on the board for 3 years, 1 year as the president of the chamber, and then a couple years after that, I served as a volunteer with the Crepe Myrtle Festival and some of the other things the town did. After that, most of my time was taken up with working out of town. I was a national sales rep for a company, and I did a lot of traveling. And 2010. I spent more nights in a hotel room than I did at home. It didn't make for a happy wife or a happy life, so I changed that as quick as possible. So volunteering time there was not a lot of that. I have done some things with the church. We sometimes do some trick or treat, trick or trunk, and that's most of what my volunteer time has done. Is when we do stuff is with the church. We do have some disabilities in our family with some people that are disabled, and we spend most of our effort making sure that they are taken care of and the expenses and stuff like that. That may not be volunteering for the community, but it's volunteering for the family that's closest to us and needs it very, very much. And I consider that to be volunteering as well.
I've served on the Angier Library Board until until consolidation, and now I serve on the Harnett County Library Board. I've also organized events at Campbell University that are open to the public. Like there's a Constitution Day that we have every year, and that's open to the public. And I was also president of the Friends of the Library at Campbell University. And I think there are members all over the county of that organization, which makes our library resources available to the community.
So, my service to this community has been various capacities, nonprofit as well. I've served as vice commander for the American Legion here in Angier, member of the VFW, done a lot of veteran initiatives throughout the county as well, representing Harnett County and Lee County and other areas throughout the state with an organization that we started called Veteran Harbor. We built ramps for some of our warriors that were wounded. There's a lot of things that I could continue to talk about that I've done there. But as far as my nonprofit work goes, it's something near and dear to my heart. I believe we need to do more in this community to represent our veteran community. I would like to see us to start doing some things like maybe some veteran parades, some other things like that. If we want an inclusive community, I think we need to start doing it and not talking about it. So I would like to see us to be more open-minded to bring people together and do some of those things. As far as my experience in government, I'm currently a town manager in a small community up in Wilson County. So I work every day on the ins and outs, dynamics of what it takes to make decisions that are going to affect our families. It's not an easy job, but it is something that is worthwhile doing. And so I think I've really found my spot in life by doing that. When you have communities or families in communities that are poor and they can't afford things, I have to make hard decisions. Either I'm going to cut their electricity off or not. So I find ways to balance that and take care of the people. And as your mayor, I would continue to advocate for those things.
I'm glad we asked this question. I'm very proud of what I've done in this community, volunteer-wise and otherwise. I mentioned before, I served 4 years on this board from 2003 to 2007. I've run a couple times, but I won that time. So anyway, but most of my volunteer work has been through local churches. I was at what was Trinity Baptist Church. I was chairman of the deacons. I did just about every job there was at the church, it seems like, at the time. I'm now a member of Anthem Church, and I don't do as much. I'm kind of more blended in, but I'm proud of what I do there. You might see me out cutting the grass there. That's volunteer work. Done a lot of, I've been at the Angier Park a lot with our Parks and Rec. Now, a lot of that was, it's not volunteer time as a sports official, but I'm interacting with children. I'm seeing the needs, so I've seen what goes on down there. Spent about 5 years coaching when our girls were little. They're grown now, but they coached both softball and basketball several years. I have served in Lillington Rotary Club, but the Rotary serves the entire community. I've been leadership roles there, president 2 terms down there, and I'm still a member, but I'm just kind of backed off a little bit just because of time. And even though teaching is not volunteer work, I feel like when you're in that profession, you're helping, you're doing a lot beyond. That bell rings at 2:45, but there's a lot of things go around. There's always aspects of it that involves helping people, and I think I consider that community service also.
All right, next next question is, based on what you know about town government, what do you see as the top priorities for Angier and why?
I would say that the top priority is going to be working on the infrastructure projects that we have. We have a lot of antiquated systems, including especially the water system, and it seems that there is a plan to replace them, but I've requested information about what exactly the plan is, and I don't get a lot of details. So I think that would be for me, the number one priority as a commissioner is to examine that question. How exactly is the water system going to be updated? What steps, what's the strategy, and how are we going to pay for it, and that sort of thing. So if the infrastructure project, I think, would be the number one priority for me.
Mr. Hall.
So, we have so many needs in this community. Really in all small communities, we have the same needs. Infrastructure is always gonna be, a challenge for everyone. We have water lines out there that are still 1 inch in diameter. We have clay lines, terracotta lines. Not only that, sewer, all these things are aged. The challenge is, we have some issues with water pressure. Infrastructure's a problem. We have growth that's an issue. So we have many challenges. To me, I don't see it collectively I don't see it as one individual, I see a collective issue. Because to me, all these things are intertwined. If we don't have a smart plan in our growth patterns and how we control that growth's gonna come regardless. So if we're not planning wisely and working together on this and coming up with a game plan together and getting feedback and having our stakeholders come together and provide ideas, we're failing the constituency. And honestly, from my perspective, I think we've done a disservice to this community in some regard, because what we do here affects more than just the people that live inside this municipality. It affects everyone around us. And so with this bill that they're talking about in the state government, with taking the ETJ away from the municipal government's control, that's a scary thing for me, because if the county starts to control that, if you think for 1 second they're not gonna start putting homes around us, you're sadly mistaken. So the advantages that we have in a municipality to try to control that is real, and we can do that. But I think we come together and we build a consensus on how that plan is designed. First, I would do the comprehensive plan and target the things we need to focus on and work together to fix those.
Thought about a lot about this question because I knew it was going to be coming along. And folks, when I'm a single person, I have water pressure issues in my house, we got a problem. And I hear my friends up in Bellevue up here, they've been in front of board meetings, they can't have water. Another resident called and told me they have to go to Lowe's and buy a water pump to have enough pressure for their own house. This is 2023, folks. We're taxpayers. It's not right for people to have to buy water pumps. That needs to be our number one issue from day one. And if there's a plan, great, let us know what it is. But that's going to be my first priority, is finding out what the problem is and what we have to do to fix it. Other things are going to come along. We got the growth all around us. I'm not an engineer, but I know if there's water pressure and issues now, all these houses, they're going to have water. So it's going to have to be an issue that's going to continue to get worse. But infrastructure, like all these guys have said, have got to be fixed. We can't do anything about our school infrastructure. That's a county issue. We can't do anything about our roads. That's a state issue. But doggone, we can fix some of the issues we can fix, and that's what we need to do. And we can work with our leaders on these other issues, but the things we can fix, let's fix them as soon as we can fix them.
Can I interject something? Can I interject?
No, there's no
Esther,
question. Still
maybe
against
at
the
the
time.
end.
All right, I'm gonna parrot the speeches of the other three gentlemen as far as the infrastructure of the community. There's going to be tremendous hardships and tremendous challenges in front of us as a small community with the amount of growth that's coming toward us. We saw what happened in Holly Springs with Fuquay-Varina. Drive through Fuquay-Varina at 4:30 in the afternoon to try to get to the other side of it, and you can see it. On top of that, and as important as that is, we have to also look that we have a beautiful, wonderful, safe, and secure community. We have to stand up and support and maintain this safe community by supporting our law enforcement, by supporting our first responders, our fire departments. We need all of those things to be built up just as much as infrastructure. We don't want to have, with large populations coming in, a lot of times you have crime issues. We don't want that to come into our town. We want to be ahead of those things. We want our law enforcement to be ahead of any possibility for that, to give them as much ability to maintain what we've got in this beautiful, wonderful, safe community that we have. That is not taking anything away from the infrastructure struggles that we're going to have. I personally have had to deal with infrastructure here in town. My house is 103 years old. So as a personal expense, we had to deal with clay pipes, with pressures, and it was a result of issues that the town had, was a town issue, but because of the way things work, we had to fix it, and it was a huge expense for us on our end. So that is going to be a tremendous expense. We need to know what's going on. It needs to be transparent for all of us. And like they all said, it is 2023. We don't need to have these issues in front of us. We need to fix them.
All right, next question, we'll start with Mr. Hawley.
Honey, use the mic.
It doesn't work.
No, use theirs.
Can you hear me? Anybody hear me okay?
Just talk
Yes.
louder. Talk louder.
I'll try to yell. All right, question number 3. If you received a $10 million grant for use for the town any way that you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
Well, if I could use it any way I wanted?
Yep.
Wow, that's a good question. Honestly, we need to prioritize. I'm hoping that, as the mayor of the town of Angier, we would have our plan together. We talk about what's our plan. Well, we have a plan, but I can tell you right now, infrastructure is definitely going to need a plan. And I think we would start with the oldest or the most aged sites throughout our town. We would start putting in new systems, updating that. I believe that we can fix small issues quickly, and I think we should already be targeting that, quite frankly. And what I mean by that is we have 2 subdivisions that's already been discussed here in Bellwood in that location. I can't for the life of me understand why they're not hooked up to the new water tower. Why we didn't run better lines to accommodate those residents to make sure that they were hooked up with better pressures. To me, those were small things that could have been fixed already. But I believe it's the same thing with the comprehensive plan. You bring people together, you say, hey, we have $10 million. Let's come together as a consensus with community leaders, not only your board, but we open it up to input sessions for our community. I believe you bring people in, you get their feedback on what they would like to see, how we can do this, but we have to prioritize that spending. We need to know what our needs are and what our wants are, and we need to focus on the needs first and foremost.
That's a great question. I like that, because we all like to think about what we would do if we get money. Well, if the town gets money, I go back to what I said first about our infrastructure, fix that stuff. There's been a lot of great ideas. I attend board meetings for various reasons, and I've heard some different ideas that we need in the community. A community center is a great idea. I don't know how many folks are familiar with what Lillington did down there 10 or 12 years ago. They've got a beautiful facility that Angier could really benefit from. Now, where we put it, all that takes money. I realize that. It takes money for land and everything else. But if you have that grant, that'd be one thing. Second thing I think of is our police officers, and either number 1, more police officers. Number 2, pay the ones we have more. There's nothing more important for every citizen of this age in this town than our public safety. And I want to know in my house, if I call the law at 2 o'clock in the morning because somebody's breaking my house, I got somebody who loves their job and is paid to be there to do that job. So that's going to be another priority that I would have. Like my friend Mr. Hawley said, make a list like any of us would do if we won the lottery. Make a list of the most important things to do with our money, and figure it out, because there's just we can't comprehend the amount of growth that I think is even going to come. And to talk to our leaders about how many houses are planned, it's staggering to think that even on my end of town down here, the number of cars, it's going to be difficult. I'm going to have to change my work schedules because of traffic. So, what can we do to fix those things? Let's make a list, a priority list, and we'll spend the money the best way we can.
$10 million. $1 million? Oh,
10.
10, small Caribbean island. First off, I would make sure that our town is secure. Law enforcement, number one. Fire is another, thought that I have. If our fire department is called to the north side of town for a major event, the next choice is Coates. It's 8 miles away. The next choice after that is Lillington, and then you got 5210. We're if it was grocery stores, it would be a food desert. You know, we don't have the capability now to support what we've got. I would put that money toward that. Then I would start with the oldest sections of town, redoing the infrastructure, the clay pipes, the electric lines. In 1999 and 2000, when I was with the Crepe Myrtle Festival, we applied to close Broad Street, or close 210 at Broad Street, so we could have Crepe Myrtle Festival without having to stop traffic. We were denied that because there were no bypasses around for trucks to go around our town. It's 23 years later, and still there are no bypasses around for trucks to go around. A major traffic accident or a major collapse in our infrastructure in the middle of town, people have to go to Benson or Fuquay-Varina to get to Lillington. It's a nightmare traffic-wise here. So this infrastructure has to be fixed first and foremost. I know there's plans in action. I don't know what those plans are, like the other gentlemen have said, but with an influx of cash like that, I would make sure there were the people here to put those plans together and put them in action.
Well, the first thing on my list would be put together a plan to get more money, because 10 million is not going to be enough. But yeah, for a start, repair the water system, put the money toward that is needed for the water system. As the town expands in population, we're going to need to expand the police force. That's money that needs to be spent on that. And if there were money left over, a community center would be a great addition to the town. Also, just other efforts to spruce things up, to make the town more aesthetic, more beautiful. We could use some trees out front here, a number of things like that.
All right, and there's question number 4 of the last ones of the pre-selected questions. What do you hope to accomplish as an Angier council member? I'll start with Mr. Warren.
A lot of these questions are kind of coming back to each other, but as a commissioner personally, what I'd like to accomplish is making sure that whatever folks need, we need to be, as elected officials, we need to be elected officials. We need to represent the people. I was teaching my 9th graders this week about democracy. Government, it should be for the people. Unfortunately, it's not. It's not. You know, sometimes we elect folks who don't have anything, you know, it's a personal agenda or whatnot. So my main objective is to be what folks, and I mean, it's a challenge because we have folks that have lived here for 70, 80 years. You know, there's 90-year-old folks. I was talking to a 90-year-old lady just this past week. They've lived here for 60, 70 years. But we also have people who 6 months ago probably didn't know where Angier was, and now it's home. You know, they got transferred for a job here, or they moved here because of their children. A lot of folks, this generation, a lot of folks have moved here to be near grandchildren. They don't know, they need to be heard as well as everybody else. So my goal is to listen more than anything else. Talk less and listen more might be a better motive for all of us.
The question was my goals for Angier. In my past, I've worked with a lot of police departments and fire departments and first responders as a salesperson in providing them services and different products. And I have seen where police departments, they have to go out 5 and 8 years in order to get equipment. So I would want our police department to have the capability, not just not a police officer that's coming in off duty or their spouse or someone like that writing grants and hoping that they get chosen for a grant, to have a person on board that does that for them. Same thing with a local fire department and an EMS department. To build these buildings, it takes years. It doesn't take, it's not a year, it's not even 2 years, it's 3 and 4 years. So it takes time to do these things. My goal would be to start with the infrastructure, catch up with the growth that's coming around us, because it's coming very, very fast. And as I can see it as a resident here, I sat in this building here when the state came in and proposed this bypass. It wasn't a surprise that it was coming. It was 25 years ago, and I made sure that my home was not in the path of it. That was my most important thing at the time. But now I see that the path of it, I am in the path of it, even though I'm 3 miles away from it. I am in the path of it because that growth is right here on me. So my biggest goal would be to make sure that Angier is prepared for this growth, and looking forward to what's coming at it.
Well, in addition to all completing all the various projects that we've all been talking about, and trying to preserve the aesthetic character of the town amidst all of this growth, I think I would also hope to get people more involved in local politics. The participation rate for municipal elections is typically around 10%, which is absolutely pathetic. And people should care more about what goes on in their town.
Yep.
And I'd like to see much more involvement from the residents of this town in working on making this a better place to live.
Could you read that one more time to me, please, sir?
What do you hope to accomplish as an Angier council member?
All right, so, we always hear the words unity. We want to have people come together. We have so many personalities out there, it's going to be very difficult to do that. But I would hope that I could bring a sense of passion, experience in building relationships, to start to bring people together and talk. People like to, they like to judge things without knowing people. And I think that's where you start. You have to enter those that they're not going to agree with you on many things. And I think you have to build a relationship with them. And you use that ability to build those relationships to continue to advocate for things that are important for our community. And you take that passion and that experience and that ability to Raleigh and to Washington, quite frankly. And you try to advocate for what's best for our community. You build the relationships here, you build your plan, but then you got to find the resources to implement those plans. And I think you have to have someone that knows people, has those relationships, can build those relationships, move forward, and start securing those funds immediately. We can talk about these things all day long, but until we actually elect someone that's going to actually show some passion, some heart, and do what's ethically right for everybody, and go out and fight for those funds and those resources and things that are going to make our lives better, we're going to continue to talk about it. So that's why I think that I'm probably I'm the strongest candidate for this race for the mayor to lead this town forward. I think my experience is going to speak volumes.
All right, thank you very much for all those answers. So that completes the pre-selected questions. So now we're gonna just open it up the floor for discussion of whatever topic you would like. Can be elaborate on whatever the questions that we've already asked, or something totally different. And you can start at whoever you want. So I don't want to put one person on the spot. So and then you can just whoever wants to go next.
All right, so look, we're a small community here. We shouldn't be bashing each other out there every day. We should be going out here and talking to each other and trying to fix these issues that we have with one another. There's some things that, that have occurred in this town over the last 8-10 months that should not have happened. And I know many of you are aware of those things. I'm somebody that's going to face these things head on and have nothing to hide. I'm very transparent. Anybody that knows me knows I'm transparent. There's things that have gone on that shouldn't have, and I can tell you this, as the board chairman for the ABC board in Angier, we had to deal with a lot of different personalities. Unfortunately, because things didn't work out for some individuals, our board has been targeted very heavily, and actually I think it's very inappropriate how they've been targeted, because our board's done some great things. Our board's made a difference in this county with mental health programs, with programs for our children, our police department. We've supported every program that we can in every capacity. The town of Angier's received more revenues over the last 3 years since I was the board chairman than any other time they've ever done it. They've received over $600,000 in the last calendar year. They've received over $300,000 so far this budget year, which just ended, and this year's not even over. So I believe that these are things that my experience will bring to the table as the mayor for Angier. Mr. Warner here is exactly right when it comes to transportation, but I believe Tom is talking about DOT roads, because DOT is going to control those roads. The roads in our town, we do have some impact there, some authority over those roads. So we can make a difference. So when it comes to those roads, I believe we do have to start working with DOT to start expanding the width of those. This farm equipment out here is not getting any smaller, they're getting larger. And some of these roads out there can't even accommodate some of that equipment. In the town I represent, where I'm a town manager, we have a main highway that runs right through our town, 222. And the curbs there get driven up on all the time by this equipment. It cracks the things, and the DOT does not maintain this like they should. But as a community, we're putting pressure on them. So now we're getting a plan in place. We're getting a plan in place to actually start getting DOT to come out so that I can actually start updating my infrastructure in the ground before they lay new asphalt. These are things, as a leader, you have got to think about. We have the fiduciary responsibility to protect the resources and funds of our communities. And unless we are making a plan, we're going to cost ourselves more money in the long run. We're having a water tower built here in Angier. There's been a lot of animosity about this water tower. There's been people that throw out this fictitious number that it's going to cost about $500,000 more for a pedestal tank versus a four-legged tank. That is not true. My engineer from my own town tells me you cannot put a price tag on something that may or may not be built in a year. You just don't know what materials are going to cost, none of these things. So when you see all these things out there, these folks that are putting it out there, they're doing it for a reason. Think about what those reasons are. It is to create division in this community. It is to create animosity amongst ourselves. And for what reason? There's not one person in here that will ever convince me that I or my wife or anybody in my family is wanting to not put a water tower up because we don't care about the people here. That is totally fabricated and nonsense. That has been thrown at us. And I'm going to tell you right now, I care very deeply for our community. That's why I'm here tonight. If I didn't, I wouldn't be here. I have a great career, and I love what I do. And I'm asking for your support and vote to take that same passion that I have, that I'm leading the town of Stantonsburg, North Carolina with, to bring it here to Angier and do the same thing so that we have a brighter and better future for all of our families.
Well, I'll just add one more thing to, Brian is modest about his education, so I'll say something about that. He has a bachelor's degree in public administration and a master's degree in public administration, and is also working on a PhD in public administration. That's the degree that you need to do this kind of work. So he is the best qualified candidate that we have for mayor. And I'd also like to mention that, he also didn't mention this explicitly, but he and his wife Lou have connections to state legislators, and that is a potential source of money for this town, and this town desperately needs more money than we can raise here for all of these projects. So both those qualifications and those connections make him an ideal candidate for mayor, I believe. And as for me, well, I don't have a lot of experience in public administration. I teach constitutional law, but I think given my knowledge of law, I'll be a very quick study when it comes to mastering municipal law, municipal policy making.
Thank you. My view and my goal for the town of Angier and for my time as a commissioner would be to form a liaison group of people together that can work with the state on fixing our highways. We have 2-lane roads running north and south and east and west in our town, and they're way outdated. Yes, they are state highways, but we need to have a person that is their job to work with the state to make sure these roads are fixed and the infrastructure underneath them is coordinated to where it can grow along with it. The contractors and developers outside of town have to widen roads and put in drainage ditches and all types of infrastructure for that. It should be the same thing here in the town of Angier. Also with the school system, yes, it's a county school, and that's not anything that the town has anything to do with. But we need to have a liaison, a department that works with the school system to make sure that the schools in the town work together. Those two things are one of my top goals. Law enforcement the same way. They need the ability to work with the state law enforcement, the county law enforcement to grow and communicate with everything that's around us. And I do parrot what all these other gentlemen up here are saying. There's so much to do with the infrastructure that the tasks ahead of us are tremendous. They're almost overwhelming. We've got to start somewhere, and we've got to start now. And we're all connected in it. I'm going to go back to the start of one of the things I had written down to say is, from my career, I've worked with the public as a salesperson for 37 years. I've dealt with everybody, every personality that you can imagine. I've been thrown out of buildings. I've been cussed out. I've been told I love you by the same person that cussed me out 2 hours earlier. It happens. So I feel as though I can work with anyone, talk with anyone, and work through any problem and come to a resolution where people don't have to go away offended. They don't have to go away angry, that we can work through it. If it's not through, we can table it to another day and work through it another day. We don't need bickering. We don't need harsh words within our town government. We need to work as a unit to move forward in our communities. We're all connected, whether it's through church or school, our kids, our grandkids, where we have breakfast and drink coffee and sit at the same red light when you go to work every morning with the same people. We're all connected, so we've got to work together to make our town better. And that is my biggest goal. So with God's help and your help, that's what I'll do.
Being the last in line, I hear a lot of things I could comment on, and I do need to confirm what Mr. Holly said. I'm fully aware what I meant with the roads was the 2 main highways, which every one of us was on coming in here, are controlled by the state, and that new bypass control. But he is right, the maintenance of all these other roads is our issue. But the traffic, I mean, I have no idea. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I promise, I guarantee you, a large majority of the folks that drive up this road every day don't live here. They're going through Coates, they're going to Raleigh or whatever reason. That is an issue that I like what Mr. Crisp said, working with folks. We have to work with people, with the state officials. Mr. Hawley does have a lot of good connections in his job. He has to do that, so he knows people there. That would be a big help. I spent 20 years covering government for local newspapers. I know a lot of those folks. I have some connections myself. I'm kind of away from that now, but I still know a lot of folks in that realm, and I think that would be helpful. I've covered boards since 1997 was the first board I started covering down in Clayton. I've seen the growth, and I served on this board for 4 years when this growth was starting. I mean, it was 2003 to 2007, and they were talking about the South Lakes community up here. That's going to come, how that's going to affect Angier, and how this and that. And it's amazing. It's a lot of the same issues 20 years later are still dealing with New Town Hall. We dealt with that 20 years ago. We talked about we were gonna buy this business over here and build a new town hall over here, so things don't always happen the way they are, but I just feel like my experience is I can step in here day one, and from the day after I get the minute I'm sworn in, and I know a little bit about what I'm doing. I know I got some experience, and I feel like the same with Mr. Hawley, because of what he's done. He can come in here that first meeting in December of this year. We can start making a difference. We can go to work if we have people in place that are willing to have the knowledge to do that. Anybody else? No.
We're just gonna continue, because I'd like to add some more too, if I could. But if you have other questions. Yeah, but could I have one more minute just to finish something up?
1 minute.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So, just so we understand it, there are other resources out there available. There are grants, there's, not just through the state legislature, but North Carolina DEQ, for water quality departments, all those public water systems. We can apply for grants all over. We're doing that now where I'm town manager. There's money from other resources out there, but here's what we really need to do in Angier. If we want a really good community, we need to make sure we bring all the community leaders together. And that means community leaders from all organizations. That means, the Chamber of Commerce, that means the veteran organizations, our nonprofit leaders out there. We need to work together on all these issues that we're having in our communities. And I believe if we can do that here, we can take that and transform it over into a county movement or initiative to start correcting some of the things in our county that we need addressed. Because we all live in this community. We're all neighbors. We all shop at the same stores. We see each other from time to time. Instead of the animosity, I think it would be better if we just see each other and say hello, and do what we have to do and try to work together and make it a better place for our families. Resources such as ARPA money. ARPA money is not going to be lost, regardless of what everyone's heard. ARPA money, all we have to do with that ARPA money right now is, if the town here is concerned about losing that for the water tower, all they need to do is just do a budget amendment, move that ARPA money into salaries into the general fund, and once that money rolls into the general fund, this is legal, they advise us to do this, roll it into the general fund. Once the general fund, the budget year ends, once it ends, you have that money sitting there in your general fund. So when the water tower project, or whatever project you wish, if you don't have enough funds for your water tower project the next year, while it's in your general fund, you can use those resources to go into your water sewer fund or any other fund you have. For me, I have an electrical fund, I have water sewer, I have all these funds. I provide every service we have. One other thing real quick, I'm sorry. The Sheriff's Department, I've been hearing there's a lot of concern out there from all of you. I've heard people saying they've heard rumors that the Sheriff's Department, the police department here would be taken away and the Sheriff's Department would take control. I don't know where that rumor started. I don't know, but I'm gonna tell you, I don't believe that's true, because I know Sheriff Coates doesn't have the manpower. They're doing this in smaller communities. They're doing it in Wilson County, where I'm a town manager. So no municipal government outside of the city of Wilson and my town have a police department anymore. The county Sheriff's Department provides police services for every municipality other than Wilson and my town. And that is not a good thing. In my experience, I would ask you, if that becomes a topic, that you all get involved and you start to advocate against that, because seeing what's taking place in those areas where this is being done to save money, it's actually reducing coverage. It's not good, so you're not having 24-hour coverage, and it's what they're doing in that area. I'm not saying that's what would happen here, but in that area, what we're seeing is the Sheriff's Department has 2 deputies assigned to a municipal government. They're small governments. Those 2 deputies come in, they go, they check in, and then they do their zone rides. They'll come through the town occasionally. They're not spending the entire day throughout the municipality. We've got to get smarter on things, on what we do. What I've been proposing up there is regional services, working with other municipalities so we can combine our resources and do things to save everyone money. I think these are things that we all can come together to try to do.
All right, thank you very much for, that concludes the planned portion that I had. We still have a few minutes, and I think we can take a couple questions from the audience. So if anybody has a question.
I do. Oh, somebody else does? Can I go?
Thank you. From each of you, you know, there's other places that are removing prayer from the town hall, removing the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to hear from each of you. Would you keep that, or would you go against that?
I'll go first.
I'll go second.
Absolutely, there will be no prayer removed. There will be no "In God We Trust" removed. The flags will not be removed. And whether I'm elected or not, there will be a flag flown in this town proudly every day. And there will be prayer every day. I hope the town would continue that whether I'm elected or not, but I can promise that if I am elected, I will stand very strong and very bold that those are two of the main things that happen. Because without those, these other things we're talking about up here, infrastructure and water quality and tanks and all that stuff, that's gone. We wouldn't have any of that stuff without God and freedom. So that's my answer to that.
Thanks to the wonder of social media, I've heard two of the most, just to be frank, two of the most ridiculous things these guys have already brought up. Number one, having the sheriff take over. The sheriff is a friend of mine. I'd love to have a conversation with him about that, because I promise you, he doesn't want to take any more. He doesn't have the resources to do that. That's just crazy talk. And this business of, again, through social media and such things, I've heard this rumor, we're going to stop prayer in public meetings. Folks, if we do that, then we got bigger problems than what goes on in Angier. I mean, this country was founded one nation under God, and we got folks talking about that. I don't even know if that's just rumor or if that's true. I would assume removing prayer from a meeting would take board action, and if I'm elected, it'll be one vote against it. I can't speak for other folks, but I don't see. I hear it every day, the Pledge of Allegiance every single day, regardless of what you hear in the media. And when I was in Harnett County, every day they did the Pledge of Allegiance. Johnson County, every day we do the Pledge of Allegiance. Down there, they take an additional step of having a moment of silence for whatever folks, which is also a great thing. But the talk of removing those items from our government and our local government is just wrong, and I hope that never happens.
So, as a veteran, you know, I served to protect everyone's rights to believe what they want to believe. Doesn't mean I have to agree with them. And most parts, a lot of times I don't. When it comes to those things, I am a person of faith. And first and foremost, I'm always going to tell you I'm a Christian first. The only way, as the mayor of this town, the only way that would be removed from anything here is they would have to remove me from that room, because I would chain myself to that dais right there to protest it. Our police officers would be tasked with arresting me. I would hope they wouldn't, but I would hope they would stand with me in solidarity, because that "In God We Trust" is on their vehicles just as well as this wall. So I would hope that they would refuse to comply with an unlawful order, and that they would stand with me, and we would protect what we need to protect.
Again, I don't know whether the rumors are true about people wanting to remove "In God We Trust" or get rid of flags or not say prayers at the sessions of the town board, but I would definitely oppose that if anyone is serious about that. And I could also give you a lecture on the history of legislative prayer, about how that is entirely consistent with the First Amendment. There's no violation of the Establishment Clause to have legislative prayer, and that's a very long tradition in this country, and I would want to keep it.
Can I find out where that lecture is going to be held?
All right, is there any other questions? All right, well, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and especially the candidates for their time and answering all the questions. I'm sure they'd be happy to talk with anybody that was willing to stick around and get to know them a little more, so.
I actually have a question. Mr. Hawley, you mentioned that more revenues have been generated towards the town of Angier since you've taken over as on the board. How do you explain that that has happened? Is it because we're drinking more in Angier?
Can you repeat the question?
It's a good question.
Can you repeat the question?
She said, she was asking, about, I made the comment about, the Angier ABC Board has dispersed more revenues to the town of Angier over the last couple of years while I've been the board chair than they have in, the past, which is true. And she asked if that was because people are drinking more. Well, I will tell you, I came in right around that COVID issue. There was an influx on people that were drinking, but I will also tell you this. I think the first year I was the chair, they had a lot of major issues in Raleigh with LB&B warehouse. They were out of stock on a lot of things, so a lot of the stores throughout the state were very low on inventories, and that was very harmful for every community. So, we fought that animal. What they were doing is they were changing their software, they were taking a price increase, and they were low on inventory. So it was like the perfect storm when this was ongoing, and it was occurring around the June, July budget, when the budget years were gonna be shifting. And so, in order to address that issue, I showed a little of my passion, and I reached out to the state, LB&B specifically, and I just advocated very passionately, hey, we've got to have our product here. We haven't had a delivery in this store for over a month, and that's not right. When we have our community here that has a store, we have employees, we have to pay, all these dynamics that are involved. And so working with them and putting pressure on them and potentially having one of our state senators to help them if we couldn't get that corrected, I think that it motivated them to do what was right. So we ended up getting a truck not only that Friday, but that Monday, and then the next Friday to get us completely back up. After that, we had no issues whatsoever with inventory. And so the plan that we implemented there at the store was to slowly build up inventory, because the store was allowing themselves to run out or very low on things, and mostly running out of things. And so we put in a plan so that we build our inventory up slowly to not harm what disbursements we could do to the town. And what that did was we were able to not only have enough revenue in our coffers to make sure we could protect our town, we also had enough inventory to last us for 3 or 4 months, depending on what that inventory was. Prices started going up, so that helped us generate more net revenue. And as a board, we worked together very hard to do what was right. There were times, in the state of North Carolina with the ABC system, you have a minimum and a maximum you're allowed to have with revenues. For Angier, it's a little over $100,000 minimum. We can go up to a maximum of $1 million, I think, before we have to disperse certain funds. However, we felt like because we were staying in that $700,000 range, in that mid-range all the time, we started dispersing funds to the town, and we weren't losing any monies. We were actually replenishing very rapidly because of the inventory we had. We were able to bring that in. While we did that, we also were able to give our employees salary increases. We were losing people to Wake County. Wake County was, paying their people $19 an hour. We were paying our employees about $12 an hour. It's very hard to keep people in this area when they could walk down the street to McDonald's and get a job for $15 an hour. So we also, in the meantime, we're trying to develop a new culture there, a positive culture also. So motivating, keeping retention, recruiting, all these things are important when it comes to our employees in our town, just like it is for any other organization. Recruitment and retention is always going to be top priorities. You want good people, you want honest people, you want ethical people. And so our employees now, they're getting paid, well. They're getting paid more than what I, as a chair, wanted them to establish as far as, the pay scale. I wanted us to stay around the $19 competitive range with Wake County, just be competitive. But our board was a little more generous. I don't have a vote as the chair unless it's a tie vote. And so, and plus, you know, my son, with him being an employee there, I've always recused myself or been recused by the board to not be involved in those discussions. However, before my son was, you know, hired at that store, you know, my plan or my goals there, 3 goals, and I'll have those same goals here for the town of Angier as well. It was to modernize our system because we were doing everything on paper ledger, which we did that. It was number 2 was to increase revenues. We did that. Number 3 was to get salaries or pay wages up for our employees. We did that. There was one more that we added to that, and it was also to plan for our future because we know we're going to grow. But in the ABC system, you can only, just like government, you can only put that money in certain types of accounts, CD bearing, those kinds of things. And so we just recently did that. We haven't done it yet. We voted to do it. So we're looking to put $250,000 into an account to draw that'll do 5% or 6% interest on a CD. It's either a 6 month, a year. We don't know which one yet. We're investigating that. And it's only going to drop us $250,000. We'll still be well above the minimum that we have to maintain. We'll be over $500,000 in our account with a lot of inventory that we can bring that back. And as we go, we'll continue to build that. So I hope that's answered more than your question. And if not, please let me know.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate your comments this evening, gentlemen, and your ideas. One of the things that mentioned, Mr. Alexander, I believe you mentioned that there was a very low percentage of population that even vote, and I know it was mentioned by one of your others, the lack of participation of citizens in activities. So I'd like to know if any of you have any ideas on how to generate not only interest, but participation, more participation by the citizens in the process that you go through in making all of our decisions. Do you have any comments on that?
Sure. I mean, we already have public meetings that are open to the public. We have all sorts of festivals that we organize every year. I kind of think it's up to citizens to be interested enough to get involved. And you know, we can try to encourage people to participate, but ultimately they have to make the decision themselves to take time out of their day to come out and participate in something. So I think you can provide encouragement, but the people themselves have to want it. And I'm not sure that's something that government can do. People need to realize that what goes on in their town government is probably much more important than what goes on in Washington, D.C. And until they see that, right, citizens themselves have to take the initiative,
I think that's exactly right. I mean, ultimately, people have to make the decision to run themselves. I mean, they have to make the decision to participate themselves. I took the time to research because I've been involved in elections, several of them, and I think approximately 4 years ago, approximately 400 people, something along those lines, voted. I mean, it's pretty awful. And that was, it was right around 400. I have to look back, and that's consistent over time. I don't think more than 400 or 500. There's always a little bit more when there's a mayor's race or something, but that's pretty bad. I don't know how you do that though. Folks are busy. I mean, a lot of folks out here you see on the road, they're taking off at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, not coming home till that time at night. So they don't, they want to go. They go home and go to bed and go do the same thing. But how do you convince people to come out and do that? I don't know, but it's important. And honestly, this day and age, there's so many options to vote. The voting is just. That just shows what he says is exactly right. It's just a complacency because, I mean, you can vote by mail or, there's really no excuse for folks not to vote except they don't want to. So the only thing I know to do is make people more aware of what's going on, have more events like this, and hope we show people that they have a stake in what we're doing up here.
As far as community participation, getting people out to vote is knowledge. The town of Angier doesn't have a a newspaper that lands on the front porch of anybody's home like it used to. And unless you specifically want to look at the Town of Angier's website or their social media, you're not going to see it. I live right here in downtown. I used to could almost hit a golf ball to downtown, and there's only one real big festival we have, the Crepe Myrtle Festival each year. My thoughts even back then, 23 years ago, was that we have 4 festivals. They don't have to be as big. They don't have to be as you know, you don't have to block off the entire town, but you get people involved. This section of town can have a festival talking about whatever they do. We've got a museum here. It doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but when somebody knows it's here, they'll come and look at it. They're not interested in gourds until they look at it. So there's things that we can do to promote our community that we do not do. And I do know that some of the, because of my participation, or my situation, having worked out of the town my entire career, having you know, it's a briefcase town, we get up and go to work. Very few of us get up and come to work into Angier. So it's hard to, like Tom said, it's hard to get people to participate when they come home and they've got to get dinner and get their kids ready to go to school the next day and go to work themselves the next day. But, getting the word out, doing more things during the summertime, more programs. They may start small, but the more people know about them, then more people will come to them, and then they become bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't know that the Crepe Myrtle Festival is any bigger now than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I don't have any statistics on that, but maybe we need to do something different. Not stop that, but do something different to go along with it, and get the people of the town involved that way.
Bill, it's a good question. Honestly, in all the research I've ever done with that question, a lot of the issues is because people just lost trust in government. So first we've got to earn that trust back. How do we do that? We've got to be ethical. We've got to be transparent. We've got to do what's right. We have got to start bringing people together and listening to their concerns and start addressing those concerns. As an elected official, you're obligated to not only sit on that dais to make decisions, but in my opinion, you're also tasked with going and seeking input from people. That should mean that you get off your backside, you walk to your business owners, you walk to your schools, you go and talk to everyone you can. You bring people together collectively, your leadership. Your chamber people are important for the businesses here, you know. So business leaders matter. They're willing to invest money in your town if they live here or not. To me, that's important, and it should matter to everyone that sits up here to represent our town, because you're not only representing those that pay taxes here, you're also representing the interests of those people that are investing in your town. They're still paying some tax, but they're not paying property tax on a home, possibly, but they still have a vested interest. And so to bring people together, you've got to earn that trust back, you know. And so it starts small. You've got to go to other organizations. I would like to be able to build an organization or a group of people that can lead a veterans group, to bring veterans together, to talk about how we can best utilize our resources as a community to help our veteran community, our children, programs to help our kids. That means, you know, we used to do, you know, some things in the park or the depot over here, movie nights. These are things that we can continue to do if we work together and plan these things. And it's about working together, I think, and building that trust to get people to start getting more involved in their government again. And I don't think until we fix those problems there, we're ever going to fix anything. And I've always said, please stop worrying about Washington, D.C., because until we fix our own backyard, we're never going to fix them.
guess we can go ahead and wrap up. I don't know if he knows I'm gonna ask him this or not, but our Harnett County GOP chairman is with us tonight, and I just wondered if maybe you could give us an update of upcoming events that are coming up within the next month or so.
Thank you, Keith. I appreciate that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Joey Powell, chairman of the Harnett County Republican Party, and also a colleague of Ethan over at Campbell. I also represent the 2nd District, which is primarily the Irwin, Anderson, Creek, and Dunn areas on the Harnett County Board of Education, where I currently serve as vice chair. But I don't just represent that area, I represent all of Harnett County, and I have a special interest in Angier. I began my teaching career a little over 30 years ago over at Harnett Central High School, and my wife Joella, she also previously taught here as an art teacher here at Angier Elementary, and so we have a vested interest in Angier. Ourselves have a fine community, just a great community, so truly grateful for the good turnout. We appreciate you gentlemen putting yourselves forward as candidates to continue to find progress or growth Angier has completed so far. As far as our political party is going, we also have, I'm also happy to have Dana Vasquez, my vice chair, as well, here with us tonight. We also, several things we have going on this past month. We were fortunate, actually last week, I believe, we had former Congressman Mark Walker. He's currently a candidate for the GOP nomination for governor. He was our keynote speaker, and I just confirmed today that at our next meeting, which will be over in the County Resource Center and Library over in Lillington, it'll be at 6:30, third Thursday night of each month. It'll be 6:30 next October the 19th. And just confirmed this morning that Treasurer Dale Falwell, who's done a fine job managing our finances here for the state, he's also a candidate for the GOP nomination for governor. He'll be our keynote speaker as well. And also we have a raffle going on. If you're interested in any raffle tickets, I'm sure Dan probably has some and so forth. And we had one just recently where we raffled off a shotgun, and for this one, what's the group?
A grill that actually like hooks up to the internet or whatever, so you can, yeah.
It's a very nice wood pellet.
Cooler and dinner and done.
Yeah, Yeti cooler, and also a dinner for, or however many for $100 these days, over to Butcher's Table and done. So for $10 a piece or whatever. So see Dana, she'd be glad to set you up or whatever. But thank you very much for the opportunity. And thank you, Keith, for a very good job here doing tonight. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks for everybody for coming out and the candidates, and I guess meeting adjourned.